Okay, so grade fours, we are on lesson 2 of opinion writing. And last day, on Tuesday, actually 2 days ago, you did some work with Miss Trania in your writer's notebook. And in your writer's notebook, you did some research. And you were researching whether to choose lilies or marigolds as a flower to put in front of our school in the planters. So you're writing this opinion writing letter to Mrs. Arts, and you're going to try and convince her of which flower to choose. So out of the two, they look like this. This is a picture of the marigold, and this is a picture of the lily. They just one sample of them. They do come in different colors. But in your booklet, hopefully you have from last day researched the marigold flower. You would have some stuff written down here, things that were pros and cons. You would also have researched the lily flower. So the lily, again, you would have put things that are good and bad, pros and cons, advantages or disadvantages. Now what I've done on the chart paper here is sort of summarize some ideas that I found using Miss Trania's websites as well. Now you might have some of these, you might have different ones. You can add to your list as you're listening to me. You can pause the video and add to your list, or at the very end, I will include a picture of both of these charts in today's assignment on Google Classroom, and you can look at the chart that way and then copy some of the answers as well. Now, copying means you're going to add to what you have already, and again, you might have found the same answers I have or something different might pop up. All right, so the marigold flower, remember this is the picture of the marigold, this guy right here. So some of the good things about a marigold flower are what we would call the longevity. So longevity of something is how long it lasts. So the marigold flower has a long season. So if we planted it now, it would last probably all of the summer up until probably September, even late September if you didn't get a frost. It's very hardy. So hardy means that it's tough. So it can withstand some cooler temperatures, some wind and some rain. They're easy to grow, they're fairly cheap, and they can take a lot of water. So if we have a week of rain, these plants will still do quite well. One of the other things that's good about them is they actually keep away bees. So think about in the front of our school, would that be a good thing to keep away the bees? Or would we want bees to be on a flower to help pollinate them? So that might be an argument for or against it. They also repel insects and pests. So they keep cats away. Marigolds, cats don't like marigolds. They don't like the smell of them. So if we had a problem with cats coming in and digging into our planters, marigolds would be a good plant to put in there. The other thing is that in the research, using again Miss Trania's websites, I found that some people use marigolds for health benefits. So they can actually make it into a tea, which is pretty cool. Some of the things that are not so good about marigolds, or the cons, disadvantages, or that the longevity. So you have to plant, the longevity can be a pro and a con. I have to plant this one every year. It's called an annual. So I have to go to the store and buy this plant every year and replant it. That might be something that you use against this plant. So maybe that's not a good reason to do it. Whoops, there goes my chart. Here's my bloopers, Deanna. Let me stick that back up there. All right, one of the other things for not so good about a marigold is they're dangerous to dogs. Some people have allergies. They can grow a fungus, and they sometimes have a little bit of a weird smell, people think. They also grow in full sun, and they need frequent watering. So one thing to think about is for frequent watering, who would water them? If, maybe on the weekends when there is no staff or students that are at the school, would they be able to withstand not being watered for a couple days? So the other thing too, if you look at this picture of our school, this is on our school website. This part right in here is where we would be planting these in the planters. Now, if you notice, there's a lot of shade there. So if this plant needs a lot of sun, will it grow really well in that area or not? So marigolds can grow in sun and shade, but they do better in full sun. Now, the other side over here is the lily. So some good things about the lily. So they're easy to grow, and they're called perennials. So perennials means we can use this plant over for the next few years. So at the end of the growing season, we would take the bulb out that's growing underneath the soil. We would put it into a paper bag, put it into a dark, cool space, and next year we would take those bulbs out and replant them again, and the flowers would grow. So that's a good thing maybe about a lily. They live for 3 to 5 years, so you can kind of do this for about 3 to 5 years. They attract butterflies and they attract bees. So remember, this one keeps bees away. This one attracts bees. So that might be an argument for or against your flower. If you think it's good that bees pollinate on flowers, but then again, maybe that's not so good to have bees around our front entrance, okay? So the colors, one of the things that came up was that lilies are multicolored and beautiful pastel colors as well. Maybe we could buy some that would match our school colors. All right, maybe you could also talk about the different meaning that the colors have, and perhaps that's an argument that you would use towards persuading Mrs. Arts to have this type of flower in our front planters. Now, some of the things over here that are cons are not so great about lilies is that they are dangerous to small children in the fact that they're so pretty that they might want to eat them. Okay, they may carry a virus, and this virus may spread to other flowers. So if it's really windy and the wind is blowing and it blows the little pollinators that are on the top of lily flowers, it could actually go into other flowers that are in and around our neighborhood and potentially cause some problems for those flowers. They attract bees and wasps, but they're poisonous to cats. Okay, so these ones keep cats away as well, but these ones are actually poisonous to cats. Negative things too, sometimes people think they don't smell so great. Some people might have allergies to it. Because they're a perennial you can plant every year, but it costs more money to buy perennials. Okay, so that might be something that you argue that maybe we just don't have the money right now to buy perennials. Okay, and sometimes they can grow quite tall. So if we have short planters, do we want a tall flower or do we want a shorter flower? So again, you can use these arguments for or against the type of flower that you've chosen. So kind of think, what would be my best 3 reasons that I could persuade Mrs. Arts with? So what you're going to do today, the only thing you're going to do today is open another page in your writer's notebook. So I'm going to open up my writer's notebook and I'm going to write down my top 3 reasons. I can choose out of here. So one of my reasons could be longevity. One of my reasons could be health benefits maybe. I'm going to pick 3 of my top best reasons that I think. Don't just pick hardy, because that wouldn't be too much to talk about. But you could talk about all of these things in a nice paragraph and really convince her. All right, so due to the magic of video, I actually picked my 3 choices, and I picked the lily. So one of my reasons is I'm going to argue because of the color of the lily. A lot of colors, maybe we could match them to our school colors. I picked longevity because perennials grow season after season. So even though up front we'd have to pay a little bit more for it, in the end we wouldn't have to purchase flowers every year, which might be a good thing. Now the last one I decided to use was against this side. So the marigold, remember, was bad to dogs, right? So if I chose the lily, this would be a better flower to have around the front if there was a lot of dogs that walked in our area. Now, sometimes when I'm at the school, I see people walking their dogs back and forth, and dogs love to sniff things. So if I planted the lily, it might be a little bit better for dogs in and around that area. Maybe that's my convincing argument. You get to choose yours. So today's assignment is just to pick your top 3. You have written down a whole bunch on both sides, marigold, lily. You're picking 1 flower and your top 3 choices, top 3 reasons you're going to choose that flower. All right, and that's all you're going to do today. So next day, Miss Trani is going to show you how to turn each one of these choices into a good paragraph or a good argument with some great reasoning behind it. Now, before I let you go, I want to share with you from last year a student's writing. So this is grade 4 writing. You can really hear the voice of this student. And her audience is Mrs. Arts, so she is trying to persuade Mrs. Arts. This is how it starts. So, have you ever wanted to go get flowers and stopped by for some beautiful lilies? You might want to read this to see if you want to go back and get them. I chose the beautiful flower, the lily, because they can live for a long period of time. So she chose longevity. Excuse me, they attract wonderful butterflies and much more, and they have pretty pastel colors. So this person chose those 3 reasons. Excuse me, now each paragraph is going to talk about each one of those reasons, and you'll hear it. So to begin with, I believe lilies can last a long time. So again, this is longevity. The reason I know this is because after you're done with the lily for the year, you can take the bulb and put it in a paper bag and wait for next year. You can eventually take it out and use it again. Even though they might be expensive, it is worth it because you can use it again, and this is called a perennial. Additionally, lilies can live up to 5 years and they can grow in the shade or the sun. Another reason, so now this is the second reason, is because of all the interesting insects out there. For instance, they are attracted to gorgeous butterflies. Who doesn't like butterflies? They might be attracted to bees, but still lilies help the bees make delicious honey and pollinate. And then sometimes we put honey in tea, which can help for illnesses. For example, the common cold. In conclusion, lilies can attract bugs, but if you grow them outside, there will be no worries. The final thing, this is the third reason, I would like to tell you about is their dazzling colors. Lilies can have a bunch of pastel colors like pink or blue. The reason I love lilies so much is because of these colors. Lily colors can also mean something like blue means graceful. I hope Mrs. Arts is thinking of putting lilies in front of our school because our school colors are orange, red, and gold, and this would look really neat. I believe that lilies would look better in the front rather than marigolds. I hope that I have persuaded Mrs. Arts to plant lilies in front of our school. So that grade 4 typed up is just a page and a little bit, probably with about a 16-point font on there. So when you're finished, you will have something that looks similar to this in writing. This is not just a short paragraph writing. This is actually a whole opinion piece. So again, we're going to take this slowly with Ms. Trania's videos in mind. So today, all you had to do was write down those 3 choices in your writer's notebook, and then you can stop and wait for the next lesson from Mrs. Trania next week. All right, thanks, grade 4s.